Way to save the season to throw. Fire. And down! Incomplete down at the goal line by San Diego. Tomlinson off the left side. Tomlinson sidestep. Hello, history books. They have to here's Sproles. Sproles inside the 10, inside the 5, and the Chargers win the game.
Welcome, everybody. Craig's here joining us. He was at the game. We'll talk to Craig in a little bit about that, but welcome, guys. 2-2. Chargers pulled this one out. Felt like they might run away with it during halftime, but like I was telling Jamie early on, we can all expect that the Chargers will make it close somehow, some way, and they did. Let's just lead off with it. So, Craig, you were at the game. What were the vibes like? Tell us about what it was like at the game today.
Yeah, so I guess as can be expected, it was a
Oh, you dropped out, Craig. We lost your sound. All right. Go ahead and see if you can get it together. If you need to go back out and in again, Craig, feel free. Jamie, let's talk about it. First, kind of thoughts. I know we'll eventually get to Jerry Tillery. I know that I guess Khalil Mack's probably the best place to start here. Big day today.
How could you not? 6 sacks, 3 forced fumbles. He went into the game with 0 sacks, I believe. Finished the game with 6, so that's pretty damn good. I think one of the big takeaways that I saw was it seems like the Chargers did a good job of doing their homework on Aiden O'Connell, because watching the game, anytime they got anywhere near him, they were not worried about sacks. They were ripping at the football.
Mm-hmm.
They were looking to knock that ball loose. So it's obvious, they had a note from studying him in college that he did not protect the football well and that you could knock that ball out. And they had a lot of success doing that. So that was a big takeaway for me, was the homework they did on O'Connell. But Mack was amazing. He was on the left side. He was on the right side. He manhandled both tackles. They schemed up some really nice stunts for him, with him and Tully on the same side, using Tully to take on 2 blockers and Mack looping underneath through the B gap. He had success. We saw him hit a Euro step, a little hesitation move to get to the quarterback. He was just all over Aiden O'Connell all day today, and he played probably his best game, his best game as a Charger.
Mm-hmm.
Through a season and 4 games. He was phenomenal. He looked rejuvenated today.
Yeah, he now holds the Chargers franchise single game sack record today with 6, and only 5 people have done it in history. He was otherworldly today. Craig, how you feeling? You good now?
Pretty good. Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah. All right. So tell us what it was like.
Yeah, so saying, as far as the atmosphere is concerned, it was to be expected. Bunch of Raiders fans. It looked like, a home game for them, but we kind of knew that going in. So it wasn't a big thing. But as far as, the Chargers turnout, there was a decent fan turnout there. And also the Raiders fans that were sitting around me were pretty cool for the most part. There was only one fight that broke out almost sort of kind of a couple feet away from me. So I don't think they hit their quota. I think it was a little below. So I guess I was, it's cool for what it was worth. But as far as the atmosphere is concerned, good. But the game overall, Chargers do what the Chargers do. You just, had to make it close, because nothing can ever come easy with this team. But other than that, the experience was pretty cool. Just not having a heart attack in person as opposed to in my living room,
Having a heart attack around other Chargers fans and Raiders fans. Better or worse for you, Craig? Misery loves company, or was it like, man?
I don't know, man, because I'm going to be honest with you. It just felt like my living room all over again. I just sank down in my seat. Like, once it was 24-17, I just sank in my seat just like I would at home. And it felt like I was the only person in the room. So, not really.
All right, so we were talking about Khalil Mack while you were getting it together, man. Career day, and just an epic performance.
Oh yeah, Mac really tore it up. The 6 sacks. I was really hoping for him to pull that 7th one off. I thought he was going to get it, but wasn't meant to be.
Yeah.
But yeah, just kind of like Jamie was mentioning, they absolutely had a beat on. Was it O'Connell? Am I saying his name right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. So I know that they did scout him a bunch. Staley did allude to that. So it seems like they did their homework on him potentially when they were looking for maybe that third quarterback. And, he figured out what some of the weaknesses were, and it came in handy today. The pressure wasn't really getting home as much as you would like there in the second half. But for the most part, they rattled him, and he wasn't able to really get the ball out to the playmakers. Adams didn't really come on until later in the game. I'm sure we'll talk about that. But Khalil was a man, and I can't wait for PFF to give him some sort of crap grade about this somehow, some way, and then try to explain that he's in the 70s because he got blocked on a triple team or something like that and didn't make a play.
Yeah, he got his hand caught in his face mask, which drops his grade down.
Yeah.
He wore a glove. Yeah, and a lot of not only did Mack get a lot of sacks today and forced fumbles, but a lot of them came on third down. You talked about that tackle in stunt they've been running with Tillery, man. That thing is fucking easy money. When they're doing it with Bosa, now they're doing it with Mack. I mean, that just feels like when they need a pressure, that's going to be one of those plays they run at the end of the game to seal a game. Because it just feels like it works almost every time they do it. Put Tillery next to Mack or Bosa, and it's right to the quarterback.
I was going to say, what really makes that work is the delay on the stunt. So before the actual twist runs, it's not like one fluid motion. Whoever the looper is literally waits like a tick and a half, and it almost rocks the guard to sleep. So they're not expecting them when they finally come through the hole, and they almost have like a straight beat towards the quarterback. So they have it timed almost perfectly, almost literally every time they do it. So
and Tully's got this patent.
Definitely work on it.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Yeah, they work. You can work on it regularly, but yeah, that whoever the looper is gets home almost free nearly every time.
Yeah, and it's always, for the most part, it's been Tillery kind of creating that chaos up front, and he's got this kind of like high stepper move that's kind of a nice little, feels like a wiry little veteran move where he is high knees between the guard and tackle, forcing both guys to collapse on him, because if he just runs between them, they could pass him off. But because he's going high knee and trying to split between them, they automatically panic to kind of like close the gap. And then that's when Mack and Bosa are able to just kind of trail right behind and get an easy lane. It's a thing of beauty, man. It's crazy how far along. He didn't have as much of an impact as he had the first 3 weeks, Tuli, but still the way he is playing right now, man, he is quite far along, a lot better than we saw in college, and it just feels like he's kind of already starting to take that leap, and we're only like 4 games into the season.
I actually thought Tuli was really good. He had a pretty big impact. He freed up Mack a couple times for sacks. He made a couple run stops. He had a huge run stop on 3rd and 1, I think, where he closed quickly on a pitch behind the line of scrimmage. He was really good. I mean, he keeps stepping up. As him and Mack really are the only 2 guys on the defense that are tackling right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just meant in the score card.
Yeah.
He's been getting a sack, and tackles for loss a lot. But yeah, he's doing a lot of stuff that didn't show up. Go ahead,
as far
Frank.
as setting the edge, I think that's a really underrated part to his game. Like Jamie just mentioned, as far as what he does to collapse on the edge and staying home, really not losing contain. It happened to him maybe once, but I think that was more of a pass as opposed to a run. But he'll keep his eyes in the backfield. He waits to see where the play is developing before he makes his move. Sometimes he anticipates it, but when he just reads and reacts, he gets downhill, and he's a very sure tackler. Even when he doesn't completely wrap up a guy, if he gets enough of their legs, they're going down. So I think whether you see him showing up on the box score for sacks or not, it doesn't tell the full tale of the impact he's having, because I've continuously said it. If he's not making the plays, he's assisting on the plays, which to me is just as big a deal.
Oh, of course. Yeah. All right. So let's fast forward to the end of the game. So the Chargers only have a 7-point lead. The Raiders are driving, and there is the huge interception by Asante Samuel Jr. And I just want to talk to you guys, or have you guys talk about just the veteran. I don't want to say veteran move again, because I've already said that twice, but the way in which Zont decided to not pass off, and they kind of they did the banjo where they stood where they were, let the receivers go to the next. He automatically read Devontae Adams, cut in for a pick play, decides not to go with Devontae, and then cuts inside and gets the interception. Beautiful play by Asante Samuel Jr. And we could talk about what he did after the play, but let's talk about that play because it was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, that was a great read by Asante. He continues to be the best and most consistent player in the Chargers secondary right now. He's been phenomenal. He's not, I mean, he gave up the one big play against Tennessee, but for the most part, he's holding his own in man coverage. He's playing well in zone. He had a boneheaded body slam in the game today that extended a drive for the Raiders. But other than that, he played a really solid game. I think I saw one missed tackle, but he played really well, and he continues to get better and better. You can see the ball skills starting to develop. He's been really close to a handful of picks the last couple of weeks. I think he almost had one last week, if I'm not mistaken. There was one that he almost broke on and had against DeAndre Hopkins in Tennessee the week before. He just keeps getting close, and he finally made the play. So that was, I mean, big moment. A lot of pressure there. It seems like the defense is getting ready to fold and give up the lead, and he steps up and makes a huge play. Somebody needed to, and it's nice to see the Chargers second-round pick be that guy, take that mantle, and especially with Derwin not playing, be a playmaker and not just be a body on the field.
Yeah, it's what he's known for. Just when you're looking at the scouting profile, it's instincts and short area quickness were at the top of my list. So when he's in situations like that, I think it's where he shines, particularly against compressed portions of the field. So we're talking like red zone or plays where the teams are aiming to just get to the sticks. He'll see where the play is developing, and if there are multiple receivers in his area, he'll actually sag off of the guy that he's defending in his zone. He won't commit. He'll take just enough steps to bait the quarterback, and the second that he sees the quarterback get ready to launch it, then he takes his move. He makes his move towards whatever receiver it is, and like I said, it's like a cat. He's no false steps. He gets there, and he hasn't caught every pick, but recently he's been a lot more sure-handed. I know that we've seen some games where he dropped a few, but recently when he's gotten his hands on them, he's been coming down with them for the most part. But there's nothing like a guy who can make game-turning plays like that, because in Chargers teams past, we've always lacked that player that can come up in big moments to close out or help to close out games when the Chargers' backs are against the wall, and they found themselves in a similar situation like this today. We've become all too familiar with having these leads and then just kind of watching them fade away, and then everything snowballing downhill, and then no one can actually stop the bleeding. So he's one of those guys that isn't afraid to step up, or particularly even put himself at risk of losing on a play to make a big play. He's a gambler, but he does it. I'd say his winning percentage on gambling is much higher than it is on losing it. So love having a guy like this, because it's something that teams lacked in years past, and he's definitely coming along. The man coverage is much better. I would like to see them, even though I know that he's a smaller guy, I'd like to see him play not necessarily press man, but a little bit closer to wide receivers, as opposed to giving 10 11, 12-yard cushions and just allowing things to develop underneath, and then closing and tackling. And then, having to play that bend don't break, because I think he's got the talent to stay with wide receivers, especially, some of the guys that aren't known to be blazers at the position in the league. So really, really happy with his performance today. Yeah, that, wrestling, I don't know, it looked like one of those table, ladders, and chairs match where I get together and throw a dude through the table. And so, ultimately, didn't have to happen, but he definitely made up for it with that pick. So I was really happy with his performance, specifically towards the end of the game.
And Craig, how'd you feel about him going down right away and taking that slide?
So initially, it's like my wife, I told her at the end of the game when we're leaving, I was like, look, I don't want to complain about this now because they won, but that pick that he caught, she's like, yeah, what's wrong with that? I'm like, I'm not okay with the fact that he went down after that, because I'm looking at the field from the angle. We were in the opposite end zone, so I can see it from behind. So I'm watching what's in front of him, and I looked up at the clock. I'm like, well, why did he slide like that was going to end the game?
Yeah.
And there was only one guy to beat. I'm like, I'm not sure if he was told in that scenario to do that, if he was coached to do it or not. But I mean, worst case scenario, dude, pick up as much yardage as you possibly can and end it. Even if you get caught, end it in plus territory potentially. Just get it more towards midfield. Don't back yourself up into your own territory because there's still over 2 minutes left, and they also have another timeout, and the offense hasn't been moving the ball at all. So it worked out, but you make the big play, and then you almost shoot yourself in the foot immediately after. It felt kind of sort of J.C. Jackson-ish, if I'm being honest.
So I didn't see it live, but some of the people in our Discord saw it. Staley was on the sideline telling him to get down.
See, I've gone back and watched it a few times since Discord, and all I can see is him like jumping up and cheering. I don't see him like doing the down motion on the cheer. But go ahead.
I'll have to go back and watch it. I'm just, like I said, I didn't see it. I'm just reacting to what people in the Discord said. They said they saw him telling Asante to get down. So if that's the case, it's on the coaching. Yeah. And it's just another example of how bad the team is and has been situationally for a long time to not understand what's happening in front of you. With 2+ minutes left on the clock, you're risking giving the ball back. And like Craig said, you haven't stopped anybody. Sorry, they weren't moving the ball. So you'd like to see him advance the ball a little bit more, but at least he made the play and gave them a chance to put the game away with the offense on the field.
Quick question. Do we know how many first downs they actually had in the second half?
3. Including the one at the end of the game there to Palmer.
Okay.
And I think the other 2 came on 1 possession, if I'm not mistaken. I'd have to go back and look at it. But they had a bunch of 3-and-outs. Here it is.
Come on. You guys want to look at it or not?
Garrett's on the ball. Yeah, let's look at it.
Fucking go. So you see Staley jump, but let's see. They showed again at another angle, but I see him jumping up and down.
It looked like his hands came down, but it's hard to tell.
Chat saying he denied it, that he told him to go down. But I just want to see from this other angle, because it was this other angle that I kept watching. Because the first one, it just looks like he's jumping up and down. Let's. I don't know if I need to fast forward. Let's go. Okay, here we go.
Sincerely hope he's not throwing Zahn under the bus like that.
Oh, there's another one. Hold on.
It looks like he's looking towards the sideline after he picks it.
Yeah, for sure. And then he immediately goes
is.
down. Yeah. Hold on. Okay, so then let's go back to. Not that this is the most important.
Oh, there's an angle right there where you can almost see Staley like.
Okay, hold on. Was that forward? Oh, here we go.
Right.
Oh, see? That's the angle. Okay, so he's jumping up and waving his arms, but I don't see him going like, get down, get down. Here he comes. All right, so here comes Staley. See, he's jumping and just waving. Anyway.
I could see why that would be confusing.
For sure. Yeah. I just never saw the universal get down, but either way. Yeah, I had a hard time with I would have liked him, and I didn't see like the clear lane, but at least take it all the way down the sideline until somebody came to him and then went out of bounds, because sliding there doesn't continue the clock going like if they were on offense. At least getting as many yards as you can away from your own end zone to give enough cushion for Herbert. I mean, if you've got enough to, break one tackle against a quarterback against O'Connell, that's great. But, I'm just, I'm more of the get as many yards as you can, get out of bounds, and, then sliding immediately there.
It looked like he only had one person to beat there too.
Yeah.
And O'Connell.
From the end zone angle. Yeah, from the end zone angle, I can't. Maybe it was O'Connell.
So there's
from the end zone angle, I only saw one guy he had to get by. And
I think it was O'Connell.
Okay.
There's probably an opportunity to cut that back to the middle of the field and take it all the way if he doesn't outrun O'Connell up the sideline, which he should be able to.
Exactly what I was going to say. It looked like all he had to do was make just one quick cut back towards the middle of the field, and there was nothing but green in front of him.
People do not like me defending Staley, so I'm not. I didn't see that, but I could absolutely see why that'd be distracting you, waving your arms and shit with your DB running right by you.
So,
And I
guess
also
here's
didn't see a whole angle. But go ahead.
Here's my thing: is watching that back again. This is not Pee Wee football. Asante Samuel Jr. has been playing football for how long now? He shouldn't have to look at the sideline to see what's going on. He should understand the situation, see what's in front of him, and know what to do.
Unless your coach is waving his arms so much that it gets your attention. But yeah.
But why are you even looking at the coach at that point? You should have your eyes on what's happening ahead of you at the field, on the field, right?
Frank says that Asante Samuel Jr. said he knows what to do for next time. But
yeah, see
that might just be.
I was gonna say it's actually a great point. It sort of blows my mind that he picked the ball off, and one of his first thoughts was find coach to see what he tells
find
me.
coach.
In that moment, I would think the adrenaline's flowing so high that you're instinctually just gonna react. And it's like, I picked it, I brought it out, I'm close to the goal line, not quite in the end zone. I need to get this out of danger.
Yeah.
And like that's the first. I mean, I played receiver, but I played safety and I played a little DB. But that would have been my first thought. Like, okay, I know where I am on the field. And then I'm processing everything else afterwards. I just need to get this as far away from the goal line as possible because my offense has been crap for about the last 45 minutes. So, I don't.
Not to mention, if I run this back, game's over.
Game's
over.
over.
I seal it.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's the thing is like, it's almost like he short-circuited there. Like he picked the ball off and he was so surprised that he picked it off that he just didn't know how to react. And he just kind of, I don't want to say panicked because that's not the right word, but just didn't know, just brain fart, right?
Oh, this is the second comment about it. So it seems like Sante misread Staley and knew that he shouldn't have slid.
I think he just didn't know what to do and he kind of short-circuited. That's watching it again on the replay. It just kind of looks like he's looking at Staley and he's looking around like, what do I do now? Okay, I'll just get down.
And he knows he does not want to fumble that ball. So his first instinct was just get down.
I mean, 9 out of 10 guys pick that off and all they're thinking is, I'm taking this shit to the house.
I want 6. Yeah, totally.
So for him to have that reaction to even look at Staley just strikes me as weird.
Yeah. And I don't want to focus on this too much because there's a lot going on here. But yeah, I think it feels like he kind of panicked a little bit, saw a bunch of green, didn't want to fumble the ball, wanted to secure the turnover, get the ball back to his offense, and slid. We would have all liked him to get a little bit more yards at the very least to give them a little bit more cushion. But let's talk about the game-ending play because they go 2 plays, stopped. It's a 3rd and what was it, 6 or 7?
No, it was 3rd and 10, wasn't it?
Was it 10?
It was
I think it was 10.
Oh, whatever it was.
I think Kelly got stopped behind the line of scrimmage twice.
Yeah, we'll get to the Kelly stuff, but yeah,
they ended up getting
why they're behind the sticks again.
They got 51 on that play. What a ballsy throw and a ballsy call there to hit Joshua Palmer of all players, who dropped a pretty easy one early on, went back to him, got that completion, had the most yards on the day. It was crazy play.
I can't imagine in that situation that Palmer was the primary read on that play. Like you got to think they're looking either to get somebody, with the ball in their hands running towards the sticks or throw it right at the sticks to get the first down. You're not normally looking for a 50-yard bomb on 3rd and 10 with 1:50 to go in the game. So for Herbert to have the nuts to step up in the pocket and make that throw, I mean, he did not play well in terms of throwing the ball today. He had a pretty rough day, but he made a lot of huge plays with his legs to extend drives. And that throw was about as good as it gets from an NFL quarterback with that kind of pressure in that moment, knowing his team needs a play to step up and make that throw 50 yards downfield and hit Palmer in stride. And like you said, trust a guy who had already dropped the ball twice in the game. That was pretty impressive. That says a lot for Herbert in terms of his leadership and his ability to make clutch plays and how he's evolving in those areas. playing with a hurt finger. Granted, it's not on his throwing hand, but
Yeah.
there's a lot that goes into that, and that says a lot about who he's becoming as a player to make that play in that moment.
I'll tell you now, I can't know this for certain until I go back and rewatch, but I feel like that was probably the third read on that play. And the reason why he ended up getting there was because the pressure came that he couldn't allow whatever the first two options were to fully develop. He just had to maneuver in the pocket, and that was the next thing that he saw. That had to be at least the second or third option on that play, though. So with that said, the placement, the dime that he threw there, and you could argue, I've seen people say that there might have been some OPI there. I mean, he did give the DB a bit of a shove, but, they don't always call it. So it is what it is. With that being said, the throw was immaculate. And to do it where he did it on the field with what was around him, I mean, he was making some magic happen on big plays. But like Jamie said, the offense wasn't great today. As a matter of fact, I saw it as very, very uneven. But when there had to be a play made, it was ultimately 10 that was making it happen. And that's what you want. I mean, it's unfortunate that it has to come down to that because you would like to see him have a little bit more help in that regard offensively. But, I mean, that's why you're paying this guy all the money to step up in the clutch and make big plays, and he did that today. So for all the people and naysayers that say that he doesn't do this, well, here's another example for you. There were plenty before. Has he been perfect? No, but today was another shining example that this is the guy to lead this team. And yeah, I mean, he soldiered through a bunch today outside of the finger. He's been wearing that sleeve on his arm. I think there's something else that's bothering him on his arm there. I saw like this huge pink mark on his arm in warm-ups or something like that where he didn't have it on. I don't know what that's about, but that left arm's kind of gone through it a little bit, and apparently now there's a hand situation. But with regards to what he's doing on the field, I can give him a pass on the fact that this was not a great overall game for him. But in the moments where he needed to step up and make plays, he did it, and he wasn't tentative about it. He knew that it was on his shoulders, and he tried to make it happen on that scramble. I can't remember where he didn't quite make it. And I think there was a fourth down. I don't know if they ended up punting on that. Can't remember right now or not. Where he takes off, and he's just short of the markers, and he touches down. You can see him like kind of scanning, looking for someone to get the ball to when he realized, you know what, I'm not going to let this end in a sack. And he takes off and he tries to get it. He just barely misses getting it. But I love the fact that now he's more aggressive because in years past, particularly say like last year, he would sit in the pocket and just wait and hold the ball way too long. And instead of getting rid of it, he'd just take the sack. And instead of doing that now, it seems like he's empowered to use his legs now. And happy to see it. I'm sure Kellen Moore has a lot to do with that. But just as a guy who's a playmaker and is owning his position right now, you can't say anything negatively about that. Is it perfect? Nope, but he's getting there. He's not perfection, though, but he's getting there as an elite quarterback in the league.
He ran the ball 12 times today. I bet that's more than he's run the ball in like the last 4 or 5 games combined. I mean, he was looking to run the ball at times. He'd see the coverage, see nobody was open, and just get downfield or get upfield and make a play with his legs. And I've always said I think Herbert's better when he's allowed to be an athlete, and they haven't really allowed him to be an athlete. They haven't asked him to be an athlete. Today, I think he took it upon himself to be that athlete that he's capable of being. I'd still like to see them script more runs for him in certain situations, 3rd and short, 3rd and medium, inside the 5-yard line in the red zone. I think there are opportunities to script more runs for him and give him an opportunity to get on the edge, make plays with his legs, have kind of an RPO look at times. But to see him taking it upon himself to be the athlete and make plays with his legs and extend drives himself when guys aren't getting open downfield, I think was a really good thing because I think it speaks to his comfort level in the offense and his confidence in how things are developing and what he's seeing. And he's just trusting his eyes and letting himself win with his legs. And that's not something he's been doing for the last couple of years.
It was 3rd and 10. You were right. 1-yard gain by Kelly on first down. Davis lost a yard on second down. And then Craig, I remember hearing this last week or the week before. I couldn't remember when it was. He got turf burn. That's why he's wearing that sleeve.
Oh, that's the sleeve. Okay.
Yeah. And yeah. And so let's. So they ended up going to, and obviously Herbert doesn't know how to work through his progression. So I'm sure he was locked on
faked
to
it.
Palmer. He faked it. He was
Just
locked
faked
on
it.
Palmer the whole time. But the fact that they went to Palmer was a big deal after those 2 drops. But how about the way in which they used the rookies today? Darius Davis, clear plan. They could not get anything out of the air with these running backs, so they used Darius Davis out of the backfield. Clear plan today. He had a really huge run today, and it didn't feel like he even topped out his speed on that run either. I felt like he just needed a little bit more open field, and he could have really took it to the house. But they knew exactly what they wanted to do with Darius Davis today. They had a plan in place. I know he lost a yard on that last play that he needed, but Quentin Johnston, on the other hand, not much of a plan today. Really nice diving catch today. Also a really bad drop today where he let it go into his body. I know he was in tight coverage, but still would like to see him use his hands on that catch. But in a game where they needed some help on offense, it was Darius Davis they had a plan for, and it was not QJ, which still they just don't know how to use him quite yet.
It's frustrating. It's really frustrating that you spend a first-round pick on a guy who you feel like is a playmaker, and you can't find ways to get him the ball. And when you are trying to get him the ball, you're not getting him in the ball in a way that suits his game at all. It's like they don't know who he is or what he excels at. He was good at a lot of things in college. Jump balls, being physical was not among them. So to be throwing back shoulder fades and having him go up for 50-50 balls and things like that, it's just not his game. With as many screens as they were throwing to Mike, you would have thought they'd plan some screens for QJ at least, get him the ball in space, give him a chance to make at least one guy miss and pick up a few yards. But I mean, they're just not getting him the ball, and I feel like they're using him as a decoy. I think they feel like people are going to be drawn to him as a first-round wide receiver, and they're using him to clear things out for Keenan and other guys.
Apparently, we got our wide receivers mixed up, and the fourth-round wide receiver is the first-round wide receiver, and I mean, that was not the plan from the beginning. I mean, he was supposed to be a special teams returner guy. We came into the season thinking that they would have to eventually find a role for Darius Davis in the offense as the year went along. But from the very beginning, he's essentially had a plan, and they're sticking him back. Like, to see him start the game off in the backfield is like, okay, so you guys went through your game plan for this week. You scripted these plays, and one of the first plays in your head was, hey, let's line Davis up in the backfield as a running back, and maybe we can get to the corners a bit quicker and utilize him in that way, because right now we don't have the speed to the edge that we would like. There's no Eckler, so let's use this as the Eckler replacement. And it's just like, all right, great. So you know what his strengths are. He's fast, and you want to get him in space. Well, why can't you figure out what the strengths are of the guy that you drafted in the first round that you said was going to come in and be a high-level contributor at some point? I mean, he's supposed to be who is it that
CeeDee Lamb.
He's supposed to be your CeeDee Lamb, and they're not utilizing him in that way whatsoever. I watched on multiple plays. They're not even respecting it, actually. So the Raiders lined up on QJ to the field one-on-one with no safety help. So you could have done a multitude of things. If you wanted to send him on a couple go routes, cool. You could have, gave him an opportunity to beat press and maybe get off and stack the cornerback and then maybe give him an over-shoulder ball, something like that. Or you could have run him on some slants when there was a little bit of separation and opening to the field. Or you can run him on and out. There was a bunch that you could do that they just didn't. And it was really frustrating watching the safety play close to the hash and just leave the corner out there with all that field and space to operate with. And the Chargers were just like, nah, we'll just continue to force the ball towards the middle of the field, or have Justin step back in 5 to 7 step drops, allowing wide receivers, or trying to wait for wide receivers to find openings to stick balls in tight windows. There was no set plays that they had in mind, at least from what they showed today, where the onus was getting the ball to the number one or your first-round rookie wide receiver. And it's blowing my mind that they still can't figure that out after 4 weeks. Mike Williams is gone. QJ is not Mike Williams. said this from the very beginning. He's not even a true wide receiver. He lacks the physicality you need to deal with press regularly off the line of scrimmage. You have to get him in space. He's better as a Z or playing him in slot. Put him in motion and create some space that way. But just watching him be pretty much static on the line of scrimmage and not be an option whatsoever, or like Jamie mentioned, being a decoy, is a waste of a pick. You could have just gone a different direction. And so hopefully going into the bye week, they can come up with a way to get the ball into his hands, maybe manufacture some touches and let him get rolling and warmed up. Because at this point, it's just looking like a complete waste of a pick. And it doesn't say much about, your strategy and team building, because it looks like you got him as an emergency option. And now that he's on the field, you're trying to figure out what to do with him as you go along. And that's not how game planning is supposed to work.
It almost looks like they went in knowing they needed a wide receiver, and they just picked the tallest guy on the board. That's what it looks like, because they had other guys on the board who offered things that he didn't offer, who might have been better fits for them based on what the wide receiver room looked like as a whole. But they opted to go with another basketball player, quote unquote, who wasn't a fantastic route runner, wasn't overly physical, had a hard time catching the ball with his hands, which we saw today. And they drafted him because he's big and he's fast, but they don't know how to use him. So the one thing he does well is what they struggled with for the last 2 years, which is yards after catch. And they're not even giving him opportunities to do that.
I feel like we're in the weeds now here with QJ, but it is a weird way in which they've used him for the first 4 games. And this game was supposed to be pretty telling on how are they going to utilize him because Mike Williams was injured. But yeah, I don't know what the plan is here, and it seems like he's not as close as they keep saying that he is. Let's talk about the 4th down play.
I have a question real quick.
Okay.
That I want to run by Craig, since it's hard to see on the broadcast feed. Were the Raiders playing as much zone as I thought they were, or were they playing more man?
From what I saw when I was paying attention to coverage, for the most part, because I was looking more at alignment on the Chargers side, and I didn't see a ton of motion, so sometimes I wasn't sure if they were declaring whether or not they were in zone or not, but I saw a bunch of man, like a lot of man. Sometimes my eyes would get away from me when I was looking at the rush getting to Herbert, so I wasn't necessarily looking downfield into the coverage. I was just kind of looking at what kind of magic he was going to have to pull out to get away from the rush, but I did see a significant amount of man, especially when I was watching Quentin Johnston.
So no Nate Hobbs. Their secondary's banged up and has not been playing well. And Chargers wide receivers could separate against the Raiders' backup corners, their 3rd and 4th corners.
Yeah, separation was a problem all day. From what I saw, I mean, there were a couple of times where you could look and potentially say like maybe Herbert missed the guy, but then when I'm looking at someone who's finally free and I scan my eyes back to look at Herbert, he's evading pressure, and so essentially at that point, plays semi-broken down. He's just looking for the first open window he can throw it into. So a lot of it today, and again, it will take me going back to watch, will be kind of figured out at that point. But I think some of what happened in the passing game had to do with the amount of pressure the Raiders were generating, which was a little bit of a shock to me. Well, outside of putting Trey Pipkins out there on Crosby on 3rd down, almost every single time, which is mind-blowing. But
yeah. All right. So we talked about it last week. The Chargers went for it on their own around the 35 or something last week. It was 4th and short. They did not get it. This week, same thing. We liked the play call. We liked the decision, didn't like the play call. We said we'd like to see a little tush push on that 4th and short. We got it this week. Do we still like the call? Do we like the decision? Craig, how are you feeling about that play at the end of the game there to go for it?
So leave it up to the Chargers to do the exact thing you want them to do in a game, not have it work out, and then you have to take into consideration, well, not having your starter center probably affects that. So Will Clapp in as opposed to Lindsley probably maybe changes the math on that a little bit. But I mean, I didn't have an issue with them going for it per se. It's just, and I can't even say I had an issue with the play call. It's just, I don't know, man. You got to be able to get like a half a yard. You have to be able to do that. And if your quarterback's 6'6", 240 pounds, one of the things I will say though, with regard to that, is Herbert does not get low enough. That's another issue that I have. I don't know if it's
showed up on the goal line too.
Yeah, it's just as opposed to getting into like the back of the center. Like, I know this is pause worthy. You essentially have to get in like the center's butt and follow him. He's literally over the top of the center. And so there's no momentum that can be created. And if the center gets submarined, then you're done. So he's not getting low enough. There is really no crease one way or the other because there's penetration that's coming in from the guards and on the interior. So essentially it's up to you to get that yard behind center. And Clapp, I mean, this is me watching from far away, but it doesn't look like he's getting a surge whatsoever. And when you also have a tall quarterback behind that that's not getting low enough, and it's probably not going to work out all that well. So if they had opted to go with a different play in that scenario, I would have understood, but I also see why it didn't work, just kind of based on personnel.
Yeah, I go back to last week, and I think what normally I would like them to go for it on fourth down. I just think right now they're not physical enough. They are not efficient enough running the ball in short yardage situations to do that. And it's either because Clapp is out there and he's not blocking very well, or Herbert isn't getting low enough, or they're handing the ball off to Kelly, or whatever it is. They're not making the right play calls. They're not making the right decisions to put themselves in a position to succeed, and they are not physical enough to carry those out. So you could look at it one of two ways. You could say, if you don't get the yard, you probably don't deserve to win anyway. Or you could look at it and say, this whole fourth down thing, it's not really part of their identity anymore, and winning the line of scrimmage has not been part of their identity for like the last 3 weeks, really. So as well as the defense was playing and with all the pressure they were putting on O'Connell, I'd almost, especially with O'Connell back there, I'd almost rather kick the ball deep and force the Raiders to go the length of the field and take my chances that Mack is going to get sacked number 7 and 8 or whatever it might be, and you're going to make another play. You've already forced 4 turnovers in that, or 3 turnovers in that game, including a third fumble that they didn't recover. The defense played really well today. I think I would have trusted the defense in that situation.
Yeah, late in the game, they were giving up a ton of intermediate passing yardage and just kind of letting the Raiders march down the field. But outside of that, I think they stepped up and played pretty well, especially with all of the pieces that were missing. There is a lack of physicality on this team that is a little jarring, especially when your coach says that he wants to be a line of scrimmage team. I would think that would be a point of emphasis. At least that's what we were led to believe. And it's not materializing to this point. I mean, it felt like it after week 1, and then since then, not so much. And week 2, it was like, well, the Titans front is pretty nasty, so that explains that. But, and then came week 3, and now the Raiders. So it's a little bit of a trend here. And it almost feels like maybe week 1 was a mirage of sorts, which doesn't feel great because we really like the interior of the offensive line. I still do. I just don't necessarily understand some of the play calling, and I don't want to like go off on a tangent, but they're still not lining up and running power the way that they did week 1. And they're running outside zone plays with the guy who has the worst vision of all of their running backs and also isn't super explosive. He's a north-south running back, and they're not allowing him to do that. And the guy that can make something out of nothing got more touches today. Great. Speaking of Isaiah Spiller. But they're essentially letting Kelly run the plays they should have Spiller run. So there seems to be a disconnect there as well, but I didn't mean to get off track.
No, it's not off track. I think it's a fair point. We thought one of the things that I liked about the running game was in week 1 was that I thought it was organized. They had a clear identity. They knew what they wanted to do, and they executed it. And it worked so well that they completely went away from it the last 3 weeks. So you mentioned, they've got Kelly running east-west with bad vision, trying to beat defenders to the edge. I mean, he's been here long enough. We know that's not going to work. He's probably getting more touches than he should. I think Spiller should be getting closer to an even share of the touches with Eckler out, in my opinion. And if you're going to run outside zone, you should be running it with Spiller. You shouldn't be running it with Kelly. But why in God's name, after all the success they had running the ball week one, would they want to get away from running power and being a downhill running attack? They had so much success with it. Why would you get away from it after that? I just don't understand. They're outside of Keenan, who everybody knows what Keenan's going to do, and they know exactly how to use him. They don't seem to know how to use anybody in the offense right now. With Mike out, they don't have a plan for QJ. They don't know how to use him to his strengths. They don't know how to use Kelly to his strengths. They're still figuring out how to use Spiller. They did a decent job of using Davis. We haven't seen much of Everett the last couple of weeks, so I don't know. They just seem discombobulated or disorganized on offense. And it got really bad today.
Sorry, Jamie. You just made me remember something. So I know people are going to roll their eyes when I say this, but the usage of Darius Davis is very, very interesting to me. They seem to not necessarily look at him in the return game as that guy right now. They look at him as a vital piece of the offense, and they use him in big, high leverage moments. I'd say pitching the ball to a 5'8", 175, 80-pound wide receiver out of the backfield is a choice, but if he's got the speed to get to the edge, then great. But it feels like they're using him in the way that you probably have used the Zay Flowers if you drafted him. It's weird. So the guy that you took in the fourth round is probably getting the type of burn you would like to see your first round wide receiver get, but your first round wide receiver isn't being utilized whatsoever. But the fourth round guy is being used like a shifty or quick in space guy that you can get the ball in his hands and allow to make something happen. It feels very Zay Flowers-ish. I know they liked him, but they passed on him to get kind of like the discount version, and they're clearly utilizing him in that way, but they don't know how they want to use the guy they actually took in the first round. Nothing about this makes sense to me.
Okay. Are we back in the game now, or we still want to shit on QJ in the run game and everything else?
We won. It feels like we're talking about a loss.
I know. I don't know who you guys are. You two, I don't know what happened. You guys just started to power up, and you guys started to level up each other, and then now here we are about the draft strategy and how they should have drafted other guys and how the run game sucks. And while I agree with all of it, they did win. Yes, they're 2-2. They made it work somehow. But the one thing we haven't done is 48 minutes into the show, we have to talk about Jerry Tillery.
Oh, God.
And the hit he made on Justin Herbert. Because that felt like one of the turning points in that game. The entire sideline mobbed Jerry Tillery. He gets thrown out. It felt like it sparked them a little bit. They went downfield, scored, got a turnover. I mean, it felt like it was the fire that they needed, and then, I don't know, they took a nap in the second half. But it just felt like Jerry Tillery helped spark this team, something that he never did while he was a Charger. But, man, what a dirty, stupid play, and it's not surprising that his stupidity does not stop and end with the Chargers. It is just who he is.
Yeah, I mean, Jerry Tillery is who we thought he was, right? We can crown him. He's a stupid, careless, dirty punk. He's the same guy he was when he was with the Chargers. He was making those same plays as a Charger, and people made excuses for him. Oh, he's learning to play at this level. He's just a little bit late. He'll figure it out. No, this is who he is. He's a knucklehead. He's a punk, and he's taking cheap shots at people. And honestly, he's lucky he got ejected, because if he had stayed in that game, somebody probably would have broken his ankle in a pile. I mean, somebody would have grabbed a hold of him and done something really bad to him. So the officials did him a favor. That hit was bullshit. I mean, he's 2 to 3 steps late. Herbert's already out of bounds. You can see him. He's dropping the ball to his side. He's relaxed. He knows the play is over. And then here comes this hit. And that was no love tap. That was no like little shove on the sideline. He's trying to take a shot. And you can argue, was he trying to hurt him? What was he doing? There's no reason to hit Herbert that late.
No.
None. Unless you're trying to hurt somebody.
And that's
There's
why
no reason.
Immediately after, Max Crosby, Marcus Peters run over to Herbert and are like, sorry. You could see them like
The whole
apologize.
Raiders defense was apologizing for him.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what he was thinking.
Yeah. Like when you guys are between the sideline to sideline, when you're in that chalk, you can go against each other. But other than that, these are football players who can seriously injure each other. Nobody wants to injure another player on purpose. And when you have a teammate who's so stupid, like Jerry Tillery, to make a play like that, all you can do is apologize. Because, I mean, there was nothing other than just to cheap shot Herbert. There was no – it wasn't a hustle play. It wasn't him trying to do whatever he was trying to do there. It was nothing other than to try to hurt Herbert after the play while he was out of bounds.
Yeah,
he's a
I agree.
complete and utter dirtbag. He's a dirtbag, and his teammates know it, which is why they came over to apologize. Like they knew how bad, not just the way that they looked. They're like, we understand. It almost feels like, but I mean, they both understand. We had to see it on our end when he was a part of the team. He had no real contribution, and he would make stupid, boneheaded play after boneheaded play. And now he's the Raiders' problem, and they see it every day. He had a full head of steam when he made that hit against Herbert. He saw exactly where Herbert was on the field. There was nothing that was threatening about Herbert whatsoever. Play was over. He had pretty much given himself up. And you can just see this dude. You know what it looked like? Everybody in here has watched Little Giants, right? Remember when Spike took the cheap shot on the quarterback? That's exactly what it looked like. It's like he teed him up and decided, yeah, I got one. I'll make it happen right here. And that's exactly what he did. He didn't let off the gas whatsoever. He sped through the sideline and essentially tried to decapitate Herbert. And it's not an exaggeration. I mean, scumbags do things like that. And I wouldn't be shocked if, I mean, people are always going to look for big bodies to put on teams, even if it's just to eat up some space. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't make it very much longer as a Raider. And he finds himself a free agent and, hoping to get on someone else's roster. But if you're a team that wants to contend, you can't have players like that around. It affects your culture, and I'm not saying the Raiders have a great culture as it is. We see everything that's going on with them with certain players, and it's kind of a historical thing. But he kind of fits what they've been known for historically. I just don't think anyone appreciates the fact that A, he went after a player unnecessarily, and B, the position it puts your team in, because more often than not, that's probably a decision that he's going to choose to make. He had every opportunity to back off of that, and he elected instead of. And even when he sometimes as a player, you might catch yourself wanting to do something because you're running full speed. You want to feel like everybody or show everyone you're hustling to make a play. He didn't even try to let up. He didn't bump Herbert and like try to catch him. He tried to run through him, and that's something that can't be had in the game. And if the Raiders, if they care at all. If you want to discipline him, go about it however you choose. But I think that dude should be sitting on the sideline, on his couch at home, waiting for a team to call him in the emergency that, their roster is depleted and they got to pick somebody else up to keep the ball rolling. But I don't think that dude should have a job right now. And I'm not, all for firing people, but you can't have that in the league. It's just not what the game's about. No.
And taking out of consideration that Herbert's probably the most unassuming person in the league to take a cheap shot, but two things I wanted to bring up. One was it felt like the entire Chargers sideline was surrounding Tillery for what felt like an eternity before a Raider came over to come and help Tillery. Like it was like nobody on that side of the field wanted to help Tillery at all. Like nobody had his back. Nobody came running over to try to protect Tillery, and they knew he was outnumbered. Normally, you see a bunch of teammates running over to get in the middle of that and break that thing up. They let Tillery get surrounded. It felt like there might be a couple blows thrown in there, some pushing and shoving, and then eventually there's 2 or 3 players that come in. They hung him out to dry, really, if you're looking at – because it felt like the Chargers immediately swarmed and were like, fuck that. And they were like sticking up for Herbert. Nobody stuck up for Tillery. And then I don't know if you saw it, Craig, but on the telecast – as he was getting thrown out, Tillery then does his whole heel turn and starts like yelling at the crowd and jawing with people in the stands after he's getting thrown out. I mean, he was really going for it. And he's a guy that probably won't have a job very much longer because he sucks as it is. If he's going to cost the team 15 yards and practically, a big momentum swing in that game, that's not a guy you want on the field. And, his play pretty much backs that up too.
You see the Staley was trying to get some.
Oh, yeah, he was in that. Yeah.
He was like the first person over.
And that strength and conditioning coach, whoever that dude is, who's like the biggest hype man on the sideline, always like helping guys up and like cheering guys on and stuff, the dude with the beard, he was in the middle of that too.
Yeah, man. I think Staley was probably saying all the things he wanted to say to Tillery when he was on the team. So it's just probably it probably triggered him, which is why he had the quickest reaction. It's like, oh, I had to deal with this already. I'm sick of you, dude.
Yeah. Sorry, I thought you were going to say something, Jamie.
No, I was just laughing at Craig.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. Somebody said in the Discord this afternoon that the Chargers haven't come together like that since they cut Tillery. So if that tells you anything, that hit was just ridiculous.
Is he like
they
the
should have let the
unsung
Chargers
hero
beat the
for
shit
the
out
team
of
or
him for that hit?
something? Tillery's
What's
the
that?
main. Is he like the unsung hero for the team? Is he their main inspiration, their muse? It takes.
I
Tillery
guess when they need to rally around somebody, they rally around how shitty Jerry Tillery is.
Yep.
One thing everyone can agree on.
And
there is no denying it.
Isaac Rochelle got a nice little stiff arm today too. Some former Chargers really eating it today.
Herbert broke a couple people off though, man. Even on that play where he just like Allen Iverson crossed up Max Crosby.
Oh my God, Crosby!
Amazing. Seeing that from behind was amazing. It's like standing up when he did it, like everyone around me just like jumped up, like, what the hell? We didn't even know you had that. Like, yeah, go back and watch the Oregon stuff. He has that.
Oh yeah, he was great today with his legs.
This game. Oh, go ahead. Didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I was just gonna say, outside, he had the TD run. We talked. He had that sneak early on, but the way he used his legs today, the more he uses his legs, the more multifaceted this offense can be. So, I'm definitely more for it. I know we talked about it a little bit earlier, but he was great today. Really made a lot of guys miss.
He was really good with his legs, and that's such an important part of this
scramble
offense.
On that third down to get that throw to QJ, that was unbelievable.
Yep, he had a couple scrambles like that where it looked like he was going to get hit, and he broke away from a sack and broke containment and made a throw, or got some yardage with his legs. I mean, he was phenomenal with his legs today, as good as he's been as a Charger, in my opinion. And I would love to see them script more of that. I think it's really an important part of this offense. But I was just going to say, I feel like this game for me was like Bizarro game. It's like we're playing in the Bizarro world. Special teams mostly were pretty bad. We had some bad kicks from J.K. Scott. The Raiders almost blocked 2 or 3 punts. They almost blocked a field goal. Bad decisions on returns by Davis. They didn't get anything out of the special teams, which is really unusual for them since Ficken's been here. The offense took advantage of some short fields, but for the most part, they didn't move the ball really effectively at all when they had a long field to work with, outside of that their initial drive of the game. And that was aided by a 50-yard run by Davis. They weren't really able to put sustained drives together, but they won the game with their defense.
Yeah.
7 sacks, 7 quarterback hits. They held up pretty well against the run. They came up with that big interception at the end of the game. When they really needed to, the defense stepped up to get stops, and that's just something we haven't seen from this defense really outside of a few games here or there since Staley's been here. So if they can get that kind of defensive effort with both safeties not playing, with Bosa not playing, they get those guys back fresh after the bye, hopefully, and they can get the offense going again. Because I mean, the offense to me was really out of character today. This is an offense that is second in the league in touchdown scoring drives, behind only the Dolphins. I think the Dolphins were at like 47% and the Chargers were at like 38% or something crazy like that. So they've been very efficient at punching the ball in the end zone when they get the ball. They were not great on third down. I think they were 5 of 14 on third down. Herbert was getting pummeled in the pocket. It seemed like he was under constant duress. Little erratic with some of his throws. The interception that he threw was it was a bad decision, but it was compounded by a horrible throw. I don't know if Palmer cut his route off or what happened, but I mean, he overthrew Palmer by 10 feet over his head. I mean, there was no chance to catch that ball. The offense was just out of sync. It just didn't seem like they were prepared for the Raiders defense. And I don't know if the Raiders went with a game plan that was not what they were expecting or what, but it just did not seem like they were ready for the Raiders defense, their pressure packages, their coverage packages, anything. And they just couldn't get anything going. So to win a game like that, where Herbert only throws for like 200 yards and they're having a hard time protecting him and they're not really moving the ball consistently, and have the defense make those kind of plays, I think is big for them. If they can continue to get that and they put the offense together, then, they could potentially go on a run.
Yeah, they should be getting a lot of help coming after the bye. It kind of came I know it's early, but came in a good spot.
I was going to say, I think one of the things that threw me off a bit was the lack of tight end play today. They didn't seem to have very much of an impact on the game whatsoever. I don't think Everett maybe had like 1 or 2 catches, and Parham was almost a non-factor. I know they tried to force that one ball into him in the end zone and didn't quite work out, but there was nothing to attack the seams regularly. We saw that start to come to fruition last week, and it seems like they let off of the gas again. But just kind of going back to the defense, the other thing that I noticed, for all intents and purposes, I think the safety play was actually decent. One of the things that wasn't perfect was the run support. But it's also one of those things. What can you expect from guys that were on the practice squad just last week? But as far as coverage goes, they seemed like they knew what they were doing and where they were supposed to be. I saw like pre-snap adjustments. I saw guys rolling before the snap, and no one looked confused. For the most part, the guys that were getting beat were the corners, and particularly Michael Davis again, who did not have a great game. But I was really impressed by the fact that the safety play wasn't a complete train wreck like I thought it would be, because we were all just kind of critiquing the fact that they didn't really do much with regard to depth at that position, quality depth, should I say. So I'm glad those guys held up. But ultimately, the lack of getting the tight ends involved, I think, really hurt the offense today, especially because they couldn't get the running game going. And I think the Raiders understood what happened last week with the way the Chargers played the Vikings. They scouted that. So I could tell almost every time the Chargers were going to attempt to run some sort of tunnel screen to wide receivers, because the formation is almost always the same. It's always trips to one side, tight end the opposite side, in line, and you can just see it coming. Or they might put someone in motion over back in that direction to get them a running start to throw them a quick bubble screen. And the Raiders were all over that today, so that was taken out of the game plan. But if they're going to attack the edges that way and they're going to concentrate and focus on that, then you have to be able to push the ball upfield, particularly in the seams. I don't think we did a good job of actually doing that today. So hopefully it's something they can work on throughout the bye, maybe tweak some things on offense, get things rolling again. Again, not having Austin Eckler seems to be a very big thing on this offense, but you just got to be ready and prepared week to week to make the adjustments where you have to. Guys being out can't always be an excuse. That's going to be the case, especially with this team. Guys are definitely going to be out, so you got to adjust.
Yeah, I thought Dean Marlowe had a pretty good game today. Flashed a couple times, had a tackle for a loss. I think it was 6th in the team in tackles. He was pretty active. I thought he had a pretty good game. And then in terms of the tight ends, it was Gerald Everett who had 2 catches, 9 yards, and then Stone Smart and Parham both got a target but didn't have a catch today. And Parham went out, so we'll see how he does and how serious his injury is too. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think Dean Marlowe deserves a lot of credit. Garrett, you called him out. He was really good in run support, but I think what surprised me was it didn't seem like he was ever out of position in coverage. You didn't see, wide receivers running deep down the field, wide open with a corner trailing and no safety in the area. It seemed like anytime the Raiders tried a deep shot, Marlowe was either behind it or he was undercutting it. He was always in position. So for a guy who hadn't played much or at all the first 3 weeks and is learning the system to come out and play that well, I thought was really impressive. And, Raheem Lane, He was really good in the preseason, and he flashed a couple times today as well. He's a big hitter. Both those guys played in the box. They both played deep. They rotated quite a bit, and you didn't really lose anything with one in the box and one deep. Either way, they both played really well, and I think both those guys have a chance to work their way into some kind of a rotation here because they both had to exceed expectations. Based on the fact that both Gilman and Derwin were out of the game, to have both those guys in and get as many snaps as they did, the coaches have to be thrilled.
Okay. So we're just over an hour here. I want to ask one quick question to you guys because Nick Shep won't stop talking about it. Do you guys, let me be honest with me. Do I look like Aiden O'Connell? Let me give you, hold on. I'll give you a side by side. Here's Aiden.
Outside of the fact that you both have dark hair and some facial hair, no.
Oh, is that the picture that keeps going up in the Discord?
That's
yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was wondering what that was about. I don't think so.
No, I don't think you guys look alike outside of both having black hair and facial hair.
Nick, bits don't work if they're not true, dude. And stop hammering them home. Because man, you when you get a hold of something, boy oh boy, do you love to just hammer it into the ground. All right, so
wait, hold on, guys. We can talk about J.C. Jackson. He didn't play a snap.
Okay.
So I'll just say this real quick. If Michael Davis is playing the way he's played the last 2 or 3 weeks and JC can't see the field, then that kind of tells you about what the coaches are seeing from JC in practice, in meetings. They must be really, really unhappy with what he's doing in terms of weekly preparation, because Michael Davis is toast right now. That guy can't cover anybody right now. He's missing his press jams. He's constantly trailing. He looks lost and confused. And if that is their best corner, then that does not say a whole lot for J.C. Jackson right now.
He looks like Michael Davis from, 2 years ago when he was still trying to figure it out. It's like he's regressed. And here's what I don't want to hear anymore. Staley can't say that this is performance-based as far as the starting goes, because what has Michael Davis shown you in the last 2 to 3 weeks that says that this should be a guy that you can depend on for 60 minutes every week? But beyond that, Staley said that Jackson would play today. So that's what really throws me off. What takes him off the field altogether? It was a very direct question that was asked to him maybe a day or two ago at a presser. And he said that JC would play. And something happened, apparently.
Did he say he would play, or did he say he'd be active?
So actually, it's a very good question. I thought the specific question was, would JC play? But I need to double check on that. So don't quote me. If it was just him being active, then – because I feel like maybe it was Popper that asked, and I almost feel like Popper would be more specific. But I have to double check. I thought the question was, would he play this week?
Yeah, I think it was that. Yeah, I don't remember. But yeah, it's bizarre. There's a lot of weird things with rotations going on right now. But they said they're going to just confirmed. He said he'd be active. According to Isaac Ramirez, who's obviously our beat reporter here on the After Hours program. So thank you, Isaac, for tuning in. If you got any other insight, let us know. And I think that's it. I think we're good, right?
I think so.
Okay. Hour and 10, almost 10 minutes. All right, guys. Thanks for joining us. Big win today. Not only are they 2-2, they get the AFC West win, which is important. Get the divisional win, which is important. 2-2 feels a lot better than 1-3 against this team. If they would have lost this game, man, would this have been a real sour taste in your mouth. So thank goodness. Go ahead, Jamie.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think if they had lost the Raiders, or even worse, blown a lead to the Raiders with a quarterback making his first start in the NFL, and the blown fourth down at the end of the game, that might have been enough to shit can Staley. So watching him make that decision and then not convert, I was kind of thinking if they lose this might be the end. So yeah, good thing they pulled that out, because if they had blown a 24-7 lead to Aiden O'Connell, I think we're having a whole different conversation right now.
Oh,
I think
boy.
something in a bizarre world though, Jamie, because remember that was Staley's calling card, is going for it on 4th down and making it, and then he essentially was neutered and no longer did it, and now he's doing it again, but he's being unsuccessful in doing it, but still winning when he does it. Nothing about this team makes sense.
No, it makes sense
That's
at
2
all.
weeks in a row they went for it on 4th and very short to win the game, and they didn't. And somehow an interception by Kenneth Murray last week, Asante Samuel this week, and they got the win. They're 2-2, and boy, they need this bye in the worst way. So hopefully they can get some of these starters back. They can rest up, have a plan of attack after the bye, because it's going to be a rough stretch here coming up very, very soon. I think they got Dallas and Kansas City the next 2 games, don't they?
Yeah, imagine going
Like
1-3, sitting on that for 2 weeks, and then coming out of that and having to play Dallas in that defense. Yeah.
No, thank you. All right, well, they did it. At 500, some other teams losing today. Miami lost today. I think the Bengals lost today, didn't they?
They did. They're 1-3. Yep.
Yeah. Bengals lost. Browns lost, who were doing pretty good. So Chargers are obviously still alive, like our intro says. All right, guys. Thanks for joining us. And we will see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.
Salute.